Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me tonight is Joe. Ron and Jason are both a little bit under the weather tonight, so we'll see them next week when all four of us will be back on for the first time since opening day or nearabouts that. So it'll be nice to have everybody back. But Joe, it's good to have you this week.
Hey, good to be here, man. Can't say much about my ball club, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, I feel that, dude. Yeah, Cubbies fans, you guys have a lot of venom to get out, and boy, you've earned the right to do that at this point. It has not been a stellar start to the year, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's one way of putting it.
All right, so Joe, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I've got two hard Mountain Dews tonight. I've got the watermelon flavor because I'm pretty sour about the way things are, obviously, and I've got the live wire, but because kind of tying into the shirt tonight, I just before the All-Star break, you thought maybe they were fixing it, and after the All-Star break, not so much. So I just don't know what team I have anymore, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get Bruce Wayne or Batman this week. And I think that will determine an awful lot going forward. So,
You're not wrong. You are not wrong. So for me tonight, Joe, I am going with one of my classics that I like from Evil Genius, the Purple Monkey dishwasher. Don't know why, but I'm feeling the chocolate peanut butter porter tonight. Also, it's delicious. What can I say? All right, man. So let's roll into it. So we'll hit the All-Star break first. We'll open things off with the Home Run Derby. It's kind of an inauspicious start. Ingrid Michaels, excuse me, Ingrid Andress really made Fergie look okay with one of the worst renditions of the national anthem I've ever heard. It's right up there with the butcher job that Roseanne Barr did back in Cincinnati in 1990 against the Padres.
yeah, it was right up there with the with Ozzy Osbourne trying to do the seventh inning stretch at Wrigley. That was pretty rough. So,
and I forgot about that one. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that was awful.
It's pretty up there with that. I feel so bad for her, and clearly, from her responses and stuff the next day, clearly she's going through some things, and she's seeking the help she needs, and more power to her on that front.
Yeah. She posted the apology next day on all of her social media, noted she was blackout drunk, didn't remember a thing from the performance, and was entering inpatient rehab that day to treat her alcoholism. So best of luck to her, truly. To be fair, she will be harangued for this performance probably for the rest of her career, and she's kind of earned that. But at the same time, let's also give her a little grace. At least she's acknowledging that she has a problem and is taking appropriate steps to try and fix her problem. So good for her.
I look forward to seeing what she can do in the future, and I'm sure I'll keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Not my style of music. I'm not a country guy. Never have been, never will be. No. But I do hope she gets another chance to perform the national anthem someday and she blows it out of the park.
I hope so too.
So the new format was in full effect. It was still long. It was incredibly long, but it was enjoyable. I did like how they had the format set up. I think they could do a little bit of compression to it, though. So Teoscar Hernandez became the first Dodger to win the Derby. He beat Bobby Witt Jr. 14-13 in the final. 21 teams have now had a representative win at least once. 9 teams who haven't are the Astros, Braves, Cardinals, Guardians, Padres, Pirates, Rays, Rockies, and Royals. So no matter who won, one team was going to get their first ever winner. So that was pretty cool to see. Hernandez is also the 7th Dominican-born Derby champion. Witt had a great home run derby. He crushed 20 homers in the first round, 17 in the semis, and with his last swing in the bonus time, crushed one 406, but he unfortunately put it to the deepest part of the park, and it plunked off the middle of the wall. I thought for a minute, I thought it had a chance, and then it hit the wall. I was like, come on. I wanted one more swing off at that point. I mean, come on. We already had one swing off. What's the second swing off?
Why not?
It's the great response, man. A total of 225 home runs hit during the Derby, crushing the under, which all of us picked the over, which was idiotic in hindsight, because wasn't it like 285 or 275, something like that?
I could have sworn I picked the under, but maybe I didn't. But
You might have been the one who picked the under, but I'm pretty sure Jason, Ron, and I all picked the over, and yeah,
yeah,
we won that one big time.
yeah, that was not close. That was
Well, I'm sorry.
It was
That's a
definitely
terrible
weird, but it was.
it's a terrible ballpark. I'm gonna lean on that because 225 home runs, combined 92,590 feet, or roughly 17 and a half miles. So long distance home runs were there. 69 of them went at least 425 feet. Marcelo Zuna hit the longest one at 473, and that one was holy shit crushed. I saw that and I was like, whoa, man. If you would have hit that too much higher, you would have put a hole in the roof. Jose Ramirez hit 21 in the first round, but was eliminated in the second round by Witt in a swing off. Alec Bohm, easily the biggest surprise of the night. He led off the whole thing with 21 in the first round, which tied Ramirez, and forced to swing off with Hernandez in the semifinal. I didn't know that Bohm was going to make it even to the swing off, and then he hit that timeout, and just went on a blistering pace to make up for it, and he was that close to it. So great performance by Bowman. Again, that's a terrible ballpark to hit home runs, and so just my personal opinion.
I was expecting him to do pretty well, and I the swing off that killed me. I'm like, dang it, I was this close.
Yeah,
this close to having it right. He definitely outperformed a lot of expectations, and I think it was a coming out party for him for sure.
And let's be realistic, it's probably the last chance he's going to have to be in a home run derby. The next two are going to be at Atlanta, and it's going to be at Philadelphia after that. And the big time sluggers, especially the left-handed guys, are going to be jumping at the opportunity to be in those derbies. So I think this is probably going to be his last opportunity. Nobody wanted to be in this one because it's a terrible ballpark to hit home runs in. So, hey, give the man credit. He took the opportunity, and he definitely made the most of it and put up a great showing.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you had Adolis Garcia hit 18 home runs. Marcelo Zuna hit 16. Pete Alonso had the second lowest total at 12. At this point, can we say throw Pete out for at least a year or two? I am tired of seeing Alonso. His performance has gone like that. It has fallen off the table. Get some new blood in there. I don't want to see the polar bear in there for at least a year or two. And then Gunnar Henderson, he could not get into a groove. He hit 11. For thoughts from the Derby, I'll read Jason's first, and I'll let you echo, Joe. Jason loved the new format, also agreed it needed to be shorter. Making the last guys wait almost an hour and a half is nuts. I mean, if I remember right, Bohm, I think, had to wait over 45 minutes between round one and round two, which is the fact that he was able to get back to a groove was impressive because that's way too much time. Jason thinks 2 minutes 30 pitches would be better for the first round. He's probably not far off, maybe 2.5, but honestly, I don't think you can take too much time off because of how late this thing runs every year. He loved the bonus pitches, and he thought this showed how vital pitcher selection is. The struggling players, they had horrible pitches to swing at. Like the first part of Bohm in the second round, like everything was way up and above that was nuts.
Yeah, that was not good.
So that's something that needs to be looked at. I think every single year, when you're doing the preview, I don't want to just know who the hitter is. I want to know who he's picking to pitch to him, because that makes honestly the biggest difference in the world. If you can keep it in the same spot and let your hitter get into a groove, that's by far the most important thing, instead of moving location all over the place.
Truthfully, I think they ought to consider a pitching machine.
Honestly, I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't,
tweak it up or down depending on where they like it, and that's about it.
Yeah, and then nobody can complain because you can set the speed.
Right. Set it to a BP pitch of 40 or 30 or whatever. And
actually, I'd go low 70s to 80s, so you don't have to transfer as much of your own power into the swing.
Well, you could do that too, but I think it still is definitely way too long. I'd agree with Jason there. Um, I I don't know exactly how they shrink it, but I'm almost to the point where I'm like, just make it a 4, and let's just make it, you know, first round and a final and be done. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that long. Um, and then you end up with some of these situations where you've got, Bohm, Bobby Witt Jr., guys who probably don't necessarily belong in a derby. Um, Maybe it waters it down a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, I just think that it still runs too long. It's still not really watchable for me anymore. Um, you know, I mean,
You could.
like most ESPN products anymore, it's hard to watch. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, can we just like get rid of ESPN's like hold on that because it's garbage. Everything they
can
do
we,
is garbage at this point.
can I change your last sentence and just say, can we get rid of ESPN, because at this point the worldwide leader in sports is so far from the worldwide leader in sports. It's their products unwatchable most of the time. Whether it's Sunday night baseball, baseball tonight, it doesn't matter. It's just
Well,
it's so
it's
bad.
everything that's not NFL or college football or even college basketball is unwatchable. Like it's not enjoyable. It's a garbage TV product, and we went from when we grew up. Baseball Tonight was a nightly show, and it was 10 minutes full of the best defensive plays you've ever seen,
Yeah, the
and now
webcam.
it's like once a week, if that, and it's not, and it's preview of a Red Sox Yankees matchup or a Dodgers and whoever matchup that
Giants.
nobody
Yeah.
freaking cares about. Like the product is garbage. The booking is garbage. Like it's just ridiculous. It's ESPN books their baseball schedule like Vince McMahon used to book WWE wrestlers. It's terrible. It's garbage.
And the thing that really gets me is there's still plenty of web gym quality plays. Like, the play has, if anything, gotten better over the years. Like, some of the defensive plays these guys make is absolutely spectacular and should be celebrated more, frankly.
Hmm.
And it's not a writer's problem, because Buster Olney still puts out quality articles. Like, I have ESPN Plus because it's tied with my Disney Plus. So,
Yeah.
like, I get to read Kirkjian. I still read all the writing is good. The writing is but these writers don't get airtime that much anymore.
No.
And these are the guys that need to be on the air, because the guys they have on now, I'm sorry, it's just not that good. Outside of maybe Doug Glanville when he's on, I like listening to Glanville and I love reading what he writes, because Glanville's got such a unique view. Um,
Hmm.
because all the years he played, and he played for great teams, he played for terrible teams. He was stuck in the minors for a while. He's got the experience, and they need more former players like that, and they're just not recruiting those guys. They're going elsewhere.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess the way that they've done that. It's just not enough.
Yeah. Pats and Cabbage. The big thing is, like the dunk contest, the big names are not doing it anymore because the change of the swing can mess them up for weeks. Absolutely.
Yep.
And especially in a crappy hitting park like Texas. That is one of the worst home run parks in the majors. I think next year, like I said, you're going to see the big guys want to do it in Philadelphia and Atlanta over the next 2 years, because they're not going to have to change their swing to blast in those ballparks. Another point that Pat made that I completely agree with. Like to see a skill challenge added in too, like bunting, fancy catches, plays to be judged, stuff to get the fans involved. Absolutely, Joe.
I
You were
I
mentioning
would
before we went on. They do it with the
Yeah,
future.
I would love to see something like this. The best All Star experience I think I ever had watching it on television was the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
The target shooting contest with the goal, the 3-on-3 stuff, the speed skating thing, like everything was awesome with the NHL, and I think the MLB has a chance to do that with this, and whether that's a bunting contest, home run derby with the fewer participants. Maybe maybe you do something like MVP baseball 2005, where you've got to hit the certain angles of the field and you get points for
Yeah.
it. That
Mm-hmm.
thing. They're doing that with the futures game, but it's not advertised well enough. So I mean, to do that with the major league guys would be a lot of fun. To do pop times with catchers or
Yeah.
whatever. Do something to show off the skills of the game, because right now you're not showing it, and it's just not an enjoyable all-star experience. It never has been.
How fast can Mason Miller throw? That'd be awesome to watch.
Well, I
And
mean,
one,
I'd rather not see him blow his elbow out in an all-star game showcase,
yeah,
but yeah.
true. That's true. One more point from Pat. Hardest shots is the other big one you missed from the NHL skills contest. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
watching that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it would be fun to see that kind of stuff in a MLB All Star experience, and
yeah.
maybe this goes to where they need to expand the All Star game to a couple of days. Like, I know they do the future game on Sunday, and they do the Derby on Monday, and then they've got the game on Tuesday. But like, maybe you extend it another day, or you just add more to Monday so that's a little bit more enjoyable for the fans. I mean, the home run derby is not all that exciting. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's pretty obvious who's going to win that most of the time.
Yeah, indeed. Pat, I'll bring up your comment in 1 second as we head into the All-Star game now. Unfortunately, it was yet another freaking American League victory. They won 5-3. They have a 3-1 record in the current decade. Again, remember, no game played in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And since the turn of the century, the American League is 19-4. National League, get your shit together. Paul Skeens became the first rookie pitcher to start an All-Star game since Hideo Nomo in 1995. Did I miss something?
Yeah, well, something about the NL and their ineptitude in this game is just ridiculous.
Ugh,
In 1 year, the NL had the following people in their lineup. They had Tony Gwynn, Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds, Chipper, Piazza, and Larry Walker. They had Maddox on the mound, and they lost 13-8. So,
I
like,
remember
the
that.
NL is
Garbage
pathetic in
fire?
these exhibitions. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Duran Duran hit the go-ahead home run for the AL in the fifth against Hunter Green, earned him the MVP, which was the first for Red Sox player since J.D. Drew back in 2008. Shohei Ohtani hit a 3-run home run in the third off Red Sox right-hander Tanner Houck. First Dodgers home run in an All-Star game since Mike Piazza in 96. Mike Piazza, 1996. It's been that long since the Dodgers had a home run in the All-Star game? Jesus.
Good.
And the fact it was Mike Piazza, who I will forever associate more with the Mets than with the Dodgers. Jesus. Mason Miller threw the hardest tracked pitch in All-Star game history at 103.6, which he threw to Trey Turner. Passing rolled as Chapman's 103.4 in 2015. I'm just going to point this out. Let's remember, Nolan Ryan was not tracked in the All-Star game because Nolan Ryan probably threw harder than this. Just putting that out there for the record. Manuel Clase, only the fifth pitcher to record multiple saves in the All-Star game. He joined some truly great closers: Mariano Rivera, Dennis Eckersley, Mel Harder, and Bruce Sutter. The stand-up to cancer event occurred at the end of the fifth inning as every player, fan, coach, broadcaster, umpire, stadium worker, everybody was standing, holding signs and placards with the messages or names of loved ones either lost, currently fighting, or survivors of cancer. Always gives me chills whenever I see it. I love that moment. Also in the fifth inning, you had the first ever Green, spelled Greene, versus Green matchup with Hunter Green versus Riley Green. And they also represent 2/3 of all the Greens to ever make the All-Star game, joining Shane Green in, I think, 2019 or 18. So I'm going to open up before I read Jason's comments, because this ties into one of Jason's comments. Pat nailed it. They need to go back to wearing their own freaking uniforms during the game. Pat also makes a good point here. The top of the NL is better, but the AL overall is deeper. And he's right. The depth of the AL has is much better. So going back to Jason's comment, game was entertaining. Please the Phil's rep, solid hitter, a good inning pitch. Please go back to the special jerseys for the Derby and individual unis for the All-Star game. Thank you. I don't want to see these shitty All-Star game jerseys during the game. It was great in years past when they were just there for the Derby or for warm-ups before the game. And then for the All-Star game, everybody is out in either their home or their road uniform, depending on which league was home, which league was on the road. That was such a great look. And again, the players are not there to represent their league. They are there to represent their team. So can we please go back to that? Pretty please with a cherry on top. You still there, Joe?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, issues with the VPN on the computer, but
No worries.
yeah, look, I think the team unis would be much nicer. Then I know who the heck I'm watching if I watch the game, and I think it's the merch dumps are stupid. Like, can we just please stop with a merch dump every other week?
Yeah,
Please,
it'd be nice.
including the All-Star game. Like, the special unis, if you do a more expanded skills competition, make a ton of sense. And then they could wear their team uniforms for the game itself because that's more fun to watch. I mean, how cool is it to see, way back when it was A-Rod and Cal and Jeter and like that whole thing, like when Cal had his final All-Star game and seeing them in their own uniforms, that makes that so much more special. And I think it's just dumb to do the merch dumps that they do and all that.
Yeah. As Pat said, if you pay enough money, you can get anyone to do anything. Nike.
Pretty much.
He's not wrong.
Can't argue with that logic, that's for sure.
Nope. Nope. He pretty much nailed the nail on the head with the hammer with that one. All right. So let's look at Fantasy Week 14 after the long, extended, weird week. I am back on top again where I belong. Suck on it. Cunha's Booma 16-9 over Ari Jordan, knocking Tim back down to third place. Joe, good week for you. You took Ronnie down 16-11. And Jason, you kind of fell apart, man. 15-11? I thought Jason was so happy to get back to the top. He was starting to pay attention. Maybe now Jason's going to disappear again for a while. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't think he'll disappear, but
it'd be nice.
That long week is ridiculous. So I think things will start to balance back out here this week.
Yeah.
Now we're back on normal schedule.
And this week will be weird too as players get back into the groove. And then starting next week, it should be roughly back to what we've been seeing by and large for the season. So looking at the standings, I am the first one to pass the 200 win mark at 205, 182, and 33. Jason's 4.5 back. Tim is now 7 back. And Joe, you are at 8 back, which rounds out the 4 teams that will be going on to the playoffs at this point. You're not safe, though. You are being chased down. What's finding him? Yeah, he's 9.5 back, man. So you're definitely not in a safe point. Ron, we can count out. Ron's back to 40 games out. I don't think Ron's going to make a run at this point. Or if Ron makes a run to get back to freaking 4th place to get in at being 40 games out at this point, there's something seriously wrong. So probably not for Ron this year. The major injuries of the past week, just last night, the bad luck Braves once again cannot catch a break or they get broken. Ozzie Albies out 8 weeks, fractured wrist after a collision with a base runner in the freaking 9th inning.
I mean, I don't know that you could say they can't catch a break. I think they're catching all the breaks, truthfully.
They're catching too many damn breaks. That's the problem. So Ozzie's out for 8 weeks. Braves picked up Whit Merrifield from the Phillies because we're going to pay him league minimum for the rest of the year, so who cares? And then just today, taking warm-ups before the game, took a bad hop and had to get his ring finger evaluated because it got caught. So I have not heard whether he's going to need a freaking IL stint or not, but like I said,
he's going to be fine. He passed every evaluation before the game, so he's all good to go.
Thank God.
You don't have to worry about that.
Well, I'm still worried because if all it took was a bad bounce and freaking warm ups, the guy doesn't scream durable to me. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
let's move it on to the first half review. Thoughts in general. Jason said it was overall a pretty entertaining first half. He had a lot of good games throughout the first half, a lot of fun stories, a bunch of milestones hit. So for Jason, it was, understandably, the freaking Phillies fans thought it was a very entertaining first half, more than the rest of us did. I was not as pleased with the first half, needless to say. I know you were not pleased at all with the first half, as your entire city's baseball teams is collectively maybe at a double A and a half level right now, the way they're playing.
Well, I
Um,
mean, let's not be too harsh, but
that's true. The
I,
White Sox don't have enough players to contribute to an all Chicago team to drop the level that far. Triple A and a half.
something like that. Yeah. I
Oh
mean,
man.
there was plenty of storylines. I think Jason's right about that. You had Paul Skeens, you had um, the Dodgers kind of being the Dodgers. We weren't sure if they were going to do that or not. Um, the Royals for a good month were exciting to watch every day. The Tigers had a chance for a brief period of time, but I mean, it was an exciting first half in general for baseball, regardless of how things went for my club. But um, I think in general, there's a lot to like about the season so far. The Rickwood Field game and a lot of the other specialty stuff that's happened, and as far as the rest of the season, we'll kind of see how that plays out here in the next couple weeks. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely some surprises. I wasn't expecting the Mets to do well enough to get back into a wild card position this year. I believe they're holding or they're near the bottom edge of the
they're
wild card.
holding in the third spot.
Yeah.
Um,
Philly's been a surprise, unfortunately. Screw the Phillies. Can't stand them. Never will. But honestly, they've had a hell of a first half. Their pitching's been really good. Their offense has been there despite injuries. The Brewers. What is this nonsense? What is this freaking nonsense going on in Milwaukee right now? Who's
well,
what the hell?
I mean, in looking at surprises and disappointments, I had them in both places. I mean, let's be honest here. Yeah, I don't know. Did you know? Did they have more talent than I thought they did? Is it just a matter of good luck with a new manager who got the guys to buy in early? I don't know.
Yeah,
They promoted from within, didn't they?
by and large, yeah, it's mostly
Yeah.
internal
So I
promotions. I
mean
mean,
that
they
doesn't
traded
hurt
away their
either.
ace. They traded away their ace in the offseason. Their number two guy, who would be an ace on most other teams, is out for the whole year with Tommy John recovery, and they're
I mean,
57-42.
but as I've said before, I mean, I'm not as a Cub fan. I wasn't necessarily too scared of Corbin Burns.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
fair.
we had a lot of success with him when we played against him, particularly to open the year. But I think, you know, they promoted from within, so they had a great culture, and that certainly doesn't hurt them. I thought, I guess maybe I was hoping that, the $8 million a year manager would be enough of a difference for them, but it's clearly not. So, you know, I, I'm not. I'm surprised that they're there, but when you think about it from that perspective, I guess I'm not. I'm more
Mhm.
disappointed than anything else. Um, but the surprise to me, I think, is Cleveland. I did not expect them to stay this good without Francona. I thought I overvalued the manager in that situation. I think, and I think they're a big surprise to me. The fact that the Mets have been able to do what they've been doing without Kodai Senga,
Yeah.
I think is the impressive part. Not necessarily that they're there, because I thought they could be, but without doing all of this without Senga, I guess all you need is Grimace, and that fixes everything. So,
Grimace and
to everybody who
purple flashes in the uniforms.
to everybody who thought they needed more purple on the City Connect, I think they got plenty of purple now. So, you know, it's working for him. I'm surprised that they've done it without Kodai Senga. That's the thing I will say about the Mets. That's a surprise. And he hasn't looked good in rehab either. So I just don't know how soon he's going to pitch. He had a really bad outing last night. So how soon he gets up to the majors, I have no idea.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, I wasn't sure what you were moving to next. If you're moving to disappointment or staying in surprises.
I just wanted to note Jason surprises. How bad the Astros started the first 2 to 2.5 months of the season. Yes, they have turned it around. They're looking better. They're back on top of the West because Seattle can't hold a lead if you put a gun to the back of their heads. And he also had, of course, the Phillies' hot start in the first half without their normal lineup for 2 months. Although, Jason, I want to point something out. Your injuries, they've been there, but by and large, the longest loss was Trey Turner. Harper wasn't down that long. Schwarber wasn't down that long, dude. I don't want to hear it, bro. Another pleasant surprise for Jason, the Pirates being in the mix, and they're only a half game out of the wild card at this point, so they're definitely going to likely be a contender for that. And the Red Sox having a sneaky solid start after their slow start. They're holding third place right now, 1 game out of the wild card and only 6.5 back in the division, although I don't think the Red Sox have the firepower to hang with the Yankees and the Orioles all season at the top, but they're definitely a wild card contender, I would think. The other surprise I had, looking over these standings, I'm loving that we had positive stories for a while about a lot of the bad teams. Like the A's are back in the basement where we expected them to be, but for a solid month and a half, they were playing good baseball. The Royals are still playing good baseball. They're tied for the bottom of the wild card right now in the American League. You mentioned the Tigers already. They're fading now, but the potential is there. And it's a team that if they get on a run, they might be able to get to the bottom of the wild card. I mean, they're one of those gray area teams where we could see them buy, we could see them sell. So, bunch of things to watch out for there. We'll move it to the disappointments now. I'll give you Jason's first, and he only had 3: the Cubbies, the Marlins, and the umpires. I'll let you rant on the Cubs in a minute. The Marlins, you know what? This is the new curse. The curse of the Billy Goat's gone. Baseball's been looking for a good curse. The Marlins are now stuck with the curse of Kim Ng. Kim Ng helped build that team back to a damn wild card team last year out of nowhere. And then they wouldn't give her more responsibility like every other good GM in baseball has received. They actually wanted to demote her slightly, so she told them to shove it where the sun don't shine and left. And now I hope forever that the Marlins, except when they're playing the Phillies, are terrible, because until they make amends to Kim Ng, this is what they deserve. Because I don't expect the Phillies not being able to beat the Marlins to change no matter what the hell's going on with that franchise. It's been so weird basically for the life of the franchise. It's just always going to be that way. Sorry, Phillies fans. It's just your fate in life, I think. For me, Joe, disappointments, I'm going to go right to my team. I'm going to go right to the Braves. They cannot get going offensively this year. They have been inconsistent. They have had guys hurt all year. Acuna's done. Strider is done. Harris is out for probably till the end of the month, early August. Riley was hurt earlier in the year. Ozzie is now hurt. They cannot, outside of Matt Olson, they haven't stayed healthy. And Kelnick and Olson are the only 2 regulars that have stayed healthy all year. And Arcia can't hit his way out of a wet paper bag this season. Murphy was hurt to start the year after day 1, if you'll recall. It's just... They have been hurt all year. They can't get going, and it's frustrating as hell because they've only allowed 359 runs this year as a pitching staff, which is the lowest in the freaking National League right now. Give your pitchers a break. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Max Fried went on the IL yesterday, too. Forgot to mention that one in fantasy. Damn it. Now, that said, they've got young arms. They've got plenty of depth. Ian Anderson is looking great in his rehab starts coming off Tommy John. He should be coming up, I would think, within the next couple weeks to the end of the month. So there is pitching relief coming, thank God. I've missed Ian Anderson while he's been hurt. Love that guy. So I'm glad to see him coming back, especially if we get back to the playoffs. He's been the man in the playoffs every time he's come in. So I would love to see that again. I mean, I'm thinking of that no hitting out that when he was no hitting the Astros in the World Series back in 21. I'd love to see more of that. Other disappointments for me, the Toronto Blue Jays. What the hell happened to this team? This is a team that we thought had a legitimate shot at the division or a strong wild card position. They are in the basement right now in the AL East, 45-54 coming in tonight. They're 15 games back. I know they're only 9 games under 500. Yeah, we're at the All-Star break and past. 9 games under 500 is essentially a death sentence at this point. I don't think they can get hot enough that would make the decision makers change their mind with them. I'd like to say the White Sox are a disappointment, but we expected the White Sox to be bad, so I'm not going to call them.
I don't know that I expected them to be this bad. I thought the A's would be worse. I mean,
that's
to
true.
be fair.
The White Sox are at 27.74. That's a 267 average. I mean, the White Sox have a better winning percentage than Matt Olson has batting average right now. So, yeah. Nobody. Are they still in running to chase down the Cleveland Spiders for worst winning percentage?
No idea.
They should be if they're not.
I don't follow it that closely. Trust me.
I can't say I blame you. All right, Joe. Where are your disappointments at besides the Cubs?
I'd say the Tigers. I thought that they might do a little bit more than they have. I know they're not necessarily out of it, but it kind of feels like they are in a lot of ways. The Diamondbacks, I thought they would contend a little tighter with the Dodgers in that division. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Going to some of yours, I'm not necessarily surprised with the Braves because if we go back to our NL East podcast, I said the pitching was a problem. I said it could be a problem.
The best damn part.
Well, the pitching could have been a problem, and for parts of the year it was, and then the offense was hitting, but the pitching wasn't good. And now that offense isn't hitting and the pitching's fantastic. So they haven't been able to balance that out, and that's been a huge problem for them from Atlanta's standpoint.
And hey, Pat, he's day to day. He'll be back. He's fine. He passes X-rays. Shut it.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think he was supposed to be available tonight. So
yeah, he's probably going to be available.
From what Graham McCauley for the Atlanta guys was talking about was that he was going to be available tonight. So, those things happen. It is what it is. The Cubs, I mean, that's a unanimous disappointment, I think. I think part of that is the expectation for what Cody Bellinger would be is a big part of that. I think he's been a shell of himself. He's been hurt now twice. He's still not back from the broken finger on that pitch. From about 3 weeks ago now. Look, the Cubs are what they are. I knew they were a couple players short of a full deck. I think a lot of us had expectations for them based on the weakness or perceived weakness of the NL Central. I'm not necessarily yes, they're a disappointment in the grand scheme of things because we all, I think, had them winning this division. But at the same time, I'm kind of numb to it at this point because the Cubs are the Cubs. In a way, I think that losing Justin Steele for a month at the beginning of the year didn't help you at all. Obviously, I mean you develop some younger arms, but at the same time, look. Seiya Suzuki has not had the 3-year, boom that we thought he would have, and more on that in some Read the Room, I think, coming up. But they have underperformed, and that's truly the way it goes. What's so weird about this team is that, um, from the Cubs standpoint, is that they had a chance to be really, really good, running back the same lineup with a different manager, which we all thought the manager was the problem. And I will fall my sword and apologize to David Ross tonight because clearly the manager was not the only problem in this situation. Um, I wish that Cody Bellinger would stay away from Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary for 2 months so that he can actually hit the ball and not be hurt. But it is what it is. If he wasn't so slow to react to that pitch inside, he may not have had a broken finger and been out for 3 weeks. So, look, everything that could go wrong for the Cubs has gone wrong. They made a lot of bets on Morel being the everyday third baseman, which defensively he's been pretty good, but offensively he's struggled an awful lot. They've had guys who have struggled an awful lot offensively. The bullpen has been a problem, but look, it is what it is. I'm kind of resigned to the fate of the Cubs. They're 3.5 games back, but more on this when we get to buyers and sellers and all that stuff. But it feels like they're 15 games back, truthfully.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong there at all, Joe. Pat, yeah, I thought it was just fitting they signed him and went. He did not go to the IL, Pat. He's day to day. He's not going to go to the IL. He's not expected to go to the IL. Phillies fans, man. All right, so let's move it on to the first half Cy Youngs. I think the AL is probably going to be unanimous. Jason's pick was Tariq Skubal. I looked over the guys. Corbin Burns had a great first half. Lugo had a great first half. Lugo actually led the American League in wins, but I'm also going to go with Skubal as well. His 200 at batting average against and .92 WHIP is just absolutely ridiculous to go with the 10-3 record. Joe, who's your pick for AL Cy Young?
I'm going to go Lugo. Actually,
Okay.
That he's had the best overall performance from a pitching standpoint. Most of the first half he led in ERA, other than toward the end there was Skubal. So
yeah, no problem there. Your pick's definitely not wrong. That's for sure. All right, let's move it over to the National League. Jason's pick for National League Cy Young is Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler, 10-4 with a 2.70 ERA and a .99 WHIP, a 192 average against, and 126 strikeouts. I'm going to go Chris Sale, 13-3, 2.70 ERA as well, 140 strikeouts, .95 WHIP, 202 average against. Really, any of the top three guys in the NL, I don't think you can make a bad choice here. Who's your pick?
Honestly, I'd probably would go with. This is a hard one. It's one of your two guys. I just can't really decide which one. To me, it's probably Sale because I just wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, he stayed healthy.
Zach Wheeler. It's not that I necessarily discount what he's done this year, but it's the Zach Wheeler I expected to have. Yeah. Whereas Chris Sale just kind of came out of nowhere and has had this masterful season so far. And I mean, credit where it's due, man. The guy has worked through every possible injury he could have had in the last couple of years to get to this point and have this kind of first half. I mean, I'm impressed by it, to be sure.
He's the epitome of bad luck Bears, honestly. And Jason also wanted to note, initially his pick was going to be Ranger, but he decided that the last couple of rough starts, Ranger had to end the first half. He had to go Wheeler over Ranger. And I do agree with that. All right. First half MVP. I think for the American League, this will likely be unanimous. Shall we just say it, all rise for Aaron Judge? Because I don't think anybody's got a shot at catching him.
No, truthfully, I'm not going to go with Aaron Judge.
What? All right. Go ahead. Surprise me.
I'm going to go with Gunnar Henderson. Guy's been lights up for the Orioles. Such a big – I know they have an embarrassment of riches, but when your outfield is Stanton, Juan Soto, and Aaron Judge, you have an embarrassment of riches too. So I'm going to go Gunnar Henderson on that one.
All right. I don't disagree. I'd love to see Gunnar win it, but I think what Judge has done so far, he could probably get hurt for most of the second half and win the award, kind of like Shohei did a couple of years ago. And speaking of Shohei, we'll talk about the NL MVP picks. Jason says he really wanted to pick Harper, but he realizes that it's very likely it would be Shohei Ohtani. My pick is also going to be Shohei Ohtani. He led the NL in the first half with OPS at 1.035, hit 316. He had 29 homers, 69 RBIs. 23 stolen bases as well. So Shohei's already hit the 20-20 club this year. Probably will get to 30-30 at this rate. He's done everything the Dodgers were expecting for $2 million this year, whatever the ridiculous non-deferral rate is for this year. You brought up the question a couple weeks ago, should Shohei ever be allowed to pitch again? And you and Jason brought up a great point. His value is so high with batting right now. Why would you even risk him getting hurt and potentially not being able to swing the bat? So yeah, I'm going to agree with Jason and go Shohei for the NL. What's your pick in the NL, Joe?
I don't want to do this. I truly don't. You know what? I'm going to go Harper because I can't stand the fact that Ohtani gets to play. Because there's no way in hell the guy could not know that $16 million was gone from his bank account. I'm sorry.
I do agree with that.
I just can't understand how that whole process played out. We've beaten that drum to death, but truthfully, with a lot of the injuries that have happened for the Phillies in the first half, and I know that some of the guys didn't miss a lot, but JT was out for a long time. Trey Turner was out for a long time. When you have a lineup of Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, I'm sorry. To me, that's a not to take anything away from what Ohtani has done at the plate, but when you have that lineup, I'm sorry, you're pretty well protected. Stop.
Yeah. Although I do want to point out one thing. We all said that if Mookie went down, how would the Dodgers react and how would their offense do if Mookie went down? And their offensive output has been way down without having Mookie in there because they didn't have another guy who could fill his spot. So, yes, he is protected, absolutely. But it has definitely shown that the Dodgers are like the National League. Their top is great. Their depth is garbage.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm gonna, at the risk of turning into a Harper fanboy, I'm going Harper.
All right, let's look at the American League rookies so far. Jason's first half pick was Wyatt Langford. I think that's going to be a very popular pick, generally speaking. Although, as good of a first half as Langford has, he's not my pick, actually. I'm going to go away from that. I'm going to go with one of the Orioles. I'm going to go Colton Cowser out in left field or wherever the hell the Orioles need him. The average is down at 219, but when he's hitting, his OPS is 724. He's leading American League qualified rookies at 12 home runs and with 34 RBIs. He's got a little bit of speed, not as much as David Hamilton has with the Red Sox, their shortstop. But I'm going to go Colton Cowser I'm going to pull you and not take the popular pick here. Who's your pick on the American League side?
I didn't realize I was known for bucking the trends, I guess.
I mean, you have been.
I guess. Partially because the only other offensive production they've gotten is out of Marcus Semien. I'm going to Wyatt Langford for rookie. I don't necessarily disagree with the Cowser pick. I think he's been excellent. I just think that there's not – outside of Semien, there really hasn't been a ton of offensive production that's been really earth-shattering out of Texas other than Wyatt Langford. So that's the direction I'm going in.
Yeah, and truthfully, I think it's going to be Wyatt Langford by the end of the season anyway. Looking at the National League side, I'm not. I looked at Michael Busch, and I don't think he would be a bad pick. I know Jason picked Paul Skeens, and I don't necessarily disagree with Skeens. I'm not going to go Skeens. I'm going to go with your pitcher, man. I'm going to go Imanaga because Imanaga pitched the entire first half. Skeens came up for a third of the season. He's only made like 12 starts so far. I'm going to go with the guy who's pitched for the entirety of the first half. And I think Skeens is going to eventually, I think he's the prohibitive favorite and will likely win the National League Rookie of the Year award. But I'm going to give Imanaga the credit for how he has pitched so far. And I think it drives. I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true or not, but it wouldn't shock me. I read that had Atlanta not started Sale on Sunday, even though the National League manager wanted to use Sale as the starter, Rob Manfred was going to step in and force it to be Paul Skeens, which that's bullshit. I don't care that that's the matchup Manfred feels America wants. That's the manager's decision, and the commissioner needs to keep his goddamn hands off of it.
Yeah, from the rookie side of this, I mean, I think Imanaga has been ridiculous up until about a month ago. I mean, he took a picture with Angel Reese, and ever since then, his pitching has been up and down for the most part. I mean, other than Sunday, which was excellent. But I'm going to go Michael Busch on that one of the two Cub guys. To me, part of it is because he's an MLB rookie, but Imanaga is not really a rookie. So I'm a little weary on that part of it. The other part of it, I think, too, is that this is the first time that Busch has gotten a long leash in the majors, and he's made the most of that opportunity. He was excellent for a majority of the first half, other than, a couple week stretch. And so that's why I would go that direction on the NL Rookie of the Year. I'd probably go in the direction of Michael Busch. Of the two Cub guys.
Busch is a great choice. I would not have any qualms with Busch being named Rookie of the Year for the first half at all.
Yeah.
All right. So for the definite buyers, Jason said all the division leaders plus the Braves, Cardinals, Twins, and Yankees. I agree with those. I'm going to add the Mets as a buyer. I'm going to add the Cardinals as a light. He did say buyer. I'm going to make them a light buyer because the Cardinals never really buy heavily, as you know. I'm going to go with the Padres as well. And I think I'm also going to say the Twins and or Royals will be buyers and the Mariners will be buyers because the Mariners GM can't help but make 50,000 trades a year. So he's a little under quota at this point. He's going to be buying. Any other buyers for you, Joe?
Well, I mean, like you said, obviously the division leaders, I think the wild card teams, obviously. From the AL, I don't see anybody outside of the Mariners in that current standing. So the Red Sox and the Mariners are the only two that are really within striking distance, realistically, unless something miraculous happens. And in the NL, I would say anybody outside of the Pirates, so that top five of the wild card, isn't really a realistic buyer. The Cubs are 3.5 back, but the reason I said it feels like 10.5 is because they don't own the tiebreaker with anybody in front of them.
Oh, that's brutal.
So it doesn't really matter that you're 3.5 back. You need to own a few tiebreakers, and they don't own a single one of them. And you're talking about being a July 22nd. Are you kidding me? That's brutal. So,
and we saw it last year too. The Cubs had no tiebreakers going into the end of the season, and they fell apart because they didn't have the tiebreakers to cushion it.
They missed the playoffs by one game last year because they didn't own a single tiebreaker.
Yeah.
and that's the most frustrating part of last season. This year, I've sort of resigned to their fate. But anybody who thinks that the Cubs are buying at this point needs to have their head examined because it's ridiculous. Um, they're definitely selling, but here's the problem with the Cubs, and the only reason I'm cautious on calling the Cubs a seller is because I don't know what they're going to sell, right? So Tyone has 2 years left on his deal. Happ and Horner were extended, so you've got a lot of a lot of time left, a lot of service time left. That the haul has to be pretty nice if you're going to trade one of those two guys away. I'm sorry, it just does.
Mm-hmm.
Dansby's got 5 years left, so if you're going to trade somebody like a Dansby Swanson, that haul has to be generational.
Dansby's contract means he's not moving anywhere.
Well, I'm just saying in general, talking about the Cubs from that standpoint. From a starting pitching standpoint, the only one who is a realistic option to be traded would be Jameson Taillon, who again he's got 2 years of control left after this season. So they're not built to sell. They should sell, but they're not really built to, based on some of the long-term deals that they've made.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I wouldn't say no to a Nico Horner heading to Atlanta scenario because we could move him back to shortstop again. I mean, Albies to Horner to Olsen has a nice ring to it, I feel like you kind of owe us for taking Dansby away. So.
I don't know you shit, man.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen. There's no way in hell the Cubs are trading Nico.
They certainly could.
Wistful thinking on my part.
I don't think it's far off. I think it's a possibility. I just don't know what that haul would have to look like for it to be worthwhile. The biggest place that the Cubs have room to make moves from the prospect front is in the outfield because they have such a backlog there. So they've got to move some guys because if they were in a buying position, then you've got to be parting with some of these other guys. But to me, Seiya Suzuki is playing himself into a DH only role. And he's been awful defensively for the better part of 3 months now. I question the standards of the Japanese Gold Glove because he's clearly not a Gold Glove outfielder.
His D WAR for his entire career so far is a negative 1.2.
Yeah, I don't know how they measure the metrics, but I know what I see on the field, and it's garbage. So the guy has been god awful defensively, and I think he's playing himself into a Kyle Schwarber type role where he's a DH / outfielder every once in a while when you need a guy to do that.
Let me put it to you this way. His defensive runs saved above average per 1,200 innings for his career is 0 right now. That's not going to cut it at that will never cut it as an outfielder. I mean, outfielders, you don't tend to get huge numbers there, but that's never going to cut it. I mean, compare that to any of the Gold Glove guys from last year. They're all doing better than that. I mean, even Acuna, who's been sometimes lambasted for his, some people think he showboats a little bit out in the outfield. He's even had his best season for defensive run save above average per 1,200 was back in 2018 when overall he had a 109 in right field. I mean, the problem I have with Seiya, I think he's got a good enough glove. His arm is not great for a right fielder. He might do better in left, but he's not really I think it's the arm that gets caught up with him the worst because your right fielder is supposed to be your strongest arm in the outfield, and he's not it.
No, it's actually more the catching part of it that's been the problem. He has misplayed more balls than I can count and that's
That's
only
also my
including
fielder.
only including the games I watch, which tells you just how bad
Yeah,
he's been.
yeah, it's
It's really been disheartening to see that happen to him, but kind of expected as well. You're just not really sure what you're getting when you sign a guy like that, and unfortunately, they haven't gotten their returns there. And I would be really shocked if at some point soon Owen Casey's not brought up, and the next time a fielder gets hurt, like whether it's Hap or Saya, that Owen Casey comes up, because Owen Casey's got a nice pop in the outfield. So
Mhm. You shared some clips in the group chat from some of those minor league clips, and yeah, he's got a nice looking cannon, and he's got a great first step.
yeah,
So,
so
um, I, I know I'm not Jed Hoyer, never will I be, nor do I want to be Jed Hoyer. Can I make a suggestion though? Trade
sure, go
Bellinger,
ahead.
trade Bellinger now because the way he's hitting, he's going to opt in and be a hole in that lineup out in center field for years to come.
Well, you
Get
can't
some
trade a
value.
guy who's not producing and he's not playing. So there
Yeah,
there's
but the
there's a
potential.
perceived value to him that's not there now. Um, that's the thing that's the most frustrating. Um, the perceived value of Bellinger isn't there anymore. And I've
Yeah,
kind
but
of watched that. I watched that erode firsthand. So, um, that's
has
something where
has he gotten bad enough that he is worth eating the fact that you're not going to get a great return to get out from under that contract that's likely to become an albatross? Because if he doesn't hit, he's not going to opt out. He's going to stay
I,
with it.
I wouldn't mind getting rid of him, but I just don't think the return's going to be worth anything. And
Yeah.
then and I don't necessarily disagree with getting out from under it just to get out from under it, but I don't know who's going to want that. Like, yeah, he can play first base. Yeah, he can play center field, but he hasn't been healthy for a majority of the year, and he hasn't been hitting for a majority of the year. So there's not a really net benefit here.
Yeah, that's fair. Although I will point out one thing Jason will say when we look at the Phillies is that the Phillies do need an outfielder that can bat right handed. Although
He's a
Belly is a
lefty.
lefty. So never
Yeah,
mind. Oh, I
that
forgot
doesn't
about that. He's
work.
a lefty. Shit. I forgot he doesn't switch hit either. All right.
No,
Forget that. Sorry, I was trying to give you an out to Philadelphia, but nah, it's not going to happen.
no.
Worth a shot. Jason's list of definite sellers: the Athletics, the Rockies, the White Sox, the Cubs, and the Marlins. I think by and large he's probably got that right. The Nationals might sell a little bit, but they're mostly young. There's not a lot of guys to sell there. The problem I have with the A's being listed as a seller is they don't really have anything sellable that it's going to be in high demand. Mason Miller, yes, but the haul they're going to ask for Mason Miller is going to put him out of contention. And honestly, I think the A's should hold on to Mason Miller. They've got team control, and unless they're offered literally the deal of a lifetime, you hold on to a player like that and build around him as the face of the franchise, especially as you're moving the franchise. So
Right. I
that's the
if
same
I
problem.
if I'm the A's, if I'm
Yeah,
the A's, I don't sell anything. But the only besides Miller, which I think you're right, the asking price is going to be ridiculous.
and it should
Um,
be.
and it should be. Brent Rooker is the one that the asking price might not be too bad, and you may get some good developmental pieces out of that. But I still don't know that I would do it. I'm with you on that.
They've been bringing developmental pieces in for years. They have a chunk of Atlanta's top 25 from the last 3 years because of trades for Olsen and Murphy. Like, if these guys aren't ready, I I find that hard to believe because I know not every prospect's going to hit. Shea Langoliers is playing a solid enough ball as the catcher. He's learning the position out there. He's doing a surprisingly good job of handling the staff, which is why I didn't want to trade him away in the first place. Although I'm not upset with getting Murphy back a year later, but that's why I didn't want Langoliers to go over in the damn trade for Olsen.
Yeah,
But
I remember that very clearly. That was the one. That was the one person you did not want to lose. So
nope. And I still regret it. And I think he's going to eventually grow into an all-star for them out there. But that said, The White Sox, I don't know that they have many tradable assets.
They
These,
they have they have one tradable asset that is worth anything, and that's Crochet. Um,
yeah,
I don't feel like Luis Robert is worth much, and
no,
it's because he just can't stay healthy. And the same thing with Eloy. Neither one of those can stay healthy. So it doesn't your best ability, as I often say, is availability, and those two guys just don't have it.
yeah. I'm going to list a seller that Jason did not mention. I'm surprised you didn't mention. I think the Blue Jays should sell just about everything.
I would not be disappointed if they did, and I think they should.
They've been one and done, what, 3 straight times in the playoffs. This is the best you're ever going to get out of value for Vlad Guerrero Jr. Like, sell your, unless you think this is just going to be a 1 year fluke, and I don't think it is.
I
Based
don't
off
think
what
so
we've
either.
based off what we've seen, they are at best an above average team, a wild card level team. This is not a team that, outside of a hell of amount of luck on their side and bad luck on the other side, this is not a team that is built to make a deep run in the playoffs.
No, this is a team that's built to barely get there, and you can't do that with the talent that they have. Like that to not trade anybody would be a waste of the available talent they have and the value there. I mean,
They could get
you
a
can't tell
ton of
me
top
that
prospects for Vlad. Like, Vlad would net them easily 2 to 3 top 10 picks, no matter where you send him.
I don't know that I would say two or three top tens, but I think you would have at least one one or two MLB ready guys and one double A guy maybe.
Yeah,
But I
or
don't think that
one top 10
necessarily.
and a top 15. You know,
Maybe, yeah. I think there's no way you get the value gets better for Vlad. This is not a fluke. I don't think. Um, for when it comes to him, I mean, the reason his dad was able to sustain the career he had is, I mean, you know,
he could hit the ball anywhere and
the guy
everywhere.
was skinnier and much more athletic.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
that's true. Vlad had an arm and he was fast in the outfield. He had a great
Vlad Jr. is not athletic. Vlad Jr. is the Prince Fielder of the Guerrero
Thank you.
family, basically.
Thank
Like
you.
not
That's
athletic,
exactly what I was
can
going to say.
hit, but now he can't hit, and it's just not. It to me the most worthwhile player on the Blue Jays. There's two really, well three. Um, Danny Jansen, the catcher,
Mm-hmm.
Bichette at
Yeah.
short, third, second, wherever you want to play him,
Mm-hmm.
and George Springer. Those are the only three guys who are worth a dime on that team
I'm
to
gonna
me.
toss one more out there, Kevin Gossman,
Okay, yeah, I
because
missed
a
that
guy
one.
who can eat innings and have a good K to 9 clip at the same time. That's the kind of pitcher you want going into the playoffs, because you either start him and just tell him, hey, give me hard shit for 3 to 4 innings, and then we'll bring the bullpen in, or hey, you're going to be the first guy out of the pen, and I just want you to throw fire. He's the guy that can do that.
Right.
So I think the Blue Jays should absolutely be selling. We know the Rays are already going to be selling. They've already traded Savali away. The Rockies have no value. They're sellers, but they have nobody worthwhile to trade. Um, I'm I keep going back and forth with these low mid tier wild card teams in the NL side: Diamondbacks, Padres, Pirates, Cardinals, and the Mets. I mean, Atlanta's obviously going to be buying. They're holding the top wild card spot. As bad luck as they've had, they're going to. Andopolis is going to pull something ridiculous. It's going to make us say, "Yeah, that's why he's the best GM in baseball." Um, but these mid lower tiers in the NL, I'm genuinely curious to see what direction they're going to go, because like the Pirates, you think they should be buying, but at the same point, Skeens is going to get tapered back at some point. They're not going to let him pitch deep into the playoffs. A young arm like that, a young power arm like that, who's never pitched that many professional innings, they're gonna taper and shut him down at some point, like the Nationals did with Strasburg years ago. Uh, So the Cardinals, even if they buy, they never buy big pieces. We've seen it for years. Even when the best Cardinal teams they've had, they've never been big buyers or big sellers at the deadline. The Padres, I could see them buying big, and I could see them staying pat because they're not sure what they have, and I think that's fair. They're barely holding up positive run differential. They're at plus 13 coming into tonight. The Diamondbacks are at plus 22, and both of those teams are 8 games behind the Dodgers. So the division's not likely. It's not out of reach, but it's not likely. And they're both holding at the bottom of the wild. The bottom of the wild card in the NL is going to be a mess.
Yeah, I like I said a little bit ago, I think the only teams that really have any legitimate shot or of and should make any moves are the Pirates and the Diamondbacks. Anybody south of that, so the Padres, Giants, Cubs, all the rest of that, forget it. Just be done with it. I would not be surprised if the Pirates went after Tyone from the Cubs, not to be a homer, but to me, if you're going to end up tapering Skeens, if you do that, then what better way to replace that than to have Mitch Keller, Jameson Tyone, and Jared Jones? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And having Paul Skeens available out of the bullpen, that's nuts.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
That is absolutely nuts.
You know who I was reading some rumors earlier. The Yankees, not surprisingly, are interested in getting Tyone back. I don't know if the Yankees really have a lot to offer you guys, but it's always worth a listen.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Let's just put it that way.
We'll see. All right,
we'll know a lot more. We will know a lot more about all of the trade deadline stuff come next Monday after this week.
Yeah, because remember the deadline is, I believe, the 30th.
30th. So a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow. We're gonna have a lot of trades to talk about at that point, and the rumor wire will be going nuts. We'll probably honestly, we'll probably be skipping most of the recaps next week to talk about the trade deadline, because that's going to be taking up a huge chunk of the show. So that will be next week's going to be the trade deadline preview, and then the week after that will be the post view, and it's going to be interesting, and it might get a little heated depending, because we might have multiple teams going for some guys. You never know. You know me. I like to get under Jason's skin and keep him honest.
You sure do.
Second half predictions. Jason thinks Skubal's going to hold on for Cy Young in the AL. He said if Sale stays healthy and keeps pitching the way he has, he could definitely overtake Wheeler. He's of course pulling for Wheeler. He thinks Judge is going to run away with MVP in the AL side. Excuse me, if only the NL side. The NL side is going to be a toss-up. He thinks between Shohei and Harper, both of his teammates, they have to step up. Harper missing 2 weeks may hurt his chances. Plus, Shohei makes the bettors happy. He had to toss that one in there for you. His specifically for the Phillies, he said 2 primary needs: a good right-handed batter in the outfield that can play every day, and a solid closer. He's not wrong about a closer. Their closing situation's been a mess. Looking at what Jason said, if Sale stays healthy and keeps pitching the way he is, he will definitely overtake Wheeler, because it's given his injury history, it's just the feel-good pick. So, if the two of them keep pitching the way they are, it's going to be Sale over Wheeler by the end of the year. On the NL MVP side, because I agree it's likely going to be Judge running away in the AL. On the NL side, it's likely going to be Shohei. I'm just going to say don't count out Marcell Ozuna. I don't like seeing DH-only guys, but if we're going to put Shohei up there every year, we have to consider the other DHs. Ozuna is hitting 309 with a 978 OPS. He has been the only consistently hitting Brave of the bunch. He is second in the NL in home runs behind Shohei, 28 versus 30. But Ozuna's done more with those hits than Shohei has. He's got 79 RBIs to 70. Ozuna can't run, so he's not stealing bags like Shohei is. And but the strikeouts are around the same, 97 to Shohei versus 98 for Ozuna. Ozuna walks a little less, but that's because he's a very free swinger. We've known that for years. So I don't think Ozuna is likely to win MVP. He should be in the consideration with Shohei and Harper. I think it's going to be Shohei. I hate to say it, but as Jason says, the bettors love it when it's Shohei. And Joe, I will let you make one of your famous Shohei-related betting puns. Go right ahead, my friend.
I'm not doing it, man.
That's a first. Sorry, did I say that?
It's over the line for me.
At least it's over the Mendoza line. Primary needs for Atlanta coming up. They need another outfield bat. They need Duval has not been the answer this year. Um, he has little bursts where he is tolerable, and then he goes back to being an absolute hole in the lineup. Where he's, if it weren't for his defense, he would have been DFA'd already. So I just like when Acuna got hurt in 21, I think you're going to see Andopoulos grab one or two outfielders. He's probably not going to be able to get an everyday starter. He'll probably get another platoon type guy. I mean, he already brought Rosario back, so he's probably going to grab one more outfielder, possibly two, depending on how quickly Harris is expected to come back. He probably will look at another starting arm because, in the opinion of Alex Andopoulos, you can never have too much pitching at any time. But like I said, they've got Anderson coming back. Fried's unexpected to be on the IL for very long. And they've got a bunch of guys ready to go in the minors. So I think outfielder is going to be the bigger target for the Braves, but I won't be surprised to see them bring in a starting pitcher if they find the right guy at the right price. All right, Joe, what are you thinking for second half predictions?
It's kind of hard to say. I think, I think that most of the teams that are in their division leading spots are going to stay there for the most part. I think, the fact that the Yankees have been able to hang in there as closely as they have all year is kind of shocking. I don't expect that to hold in the AL, at least anyway. I mean, from the Cubs standpoint, I don't have a whole lot of predictions other than start selling what you can sell and, bring up some of the talent that you have from the Cubs side of things. I think I think that Philly's going to end up running away with this division for good at some point. I think it's too early to count anybody out because, as the Mets proved to us years ago when they had a 7-game lead at the beginning of September, nothing is solidified yet in that division. So I do think they eventually do pull away, but it just kind of feels like there's a top tier of 4 or 5 teams, and then there's a middle tier of really good teams of maybe 5 or 6, and then the rest are middling to garbage.
Yeah,
that kind of just feels where we are with regards to the league in general right now. The fact that so many teams are within shouting distance of the third wild card spot is a testament to just how poorly the entire league is performing.
Yes, agreed.
So,
all righty, let's move it along here. Joe, do you have any extra read the room, or was it largely venting about the venom towards the Cubbies so far?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. So, one of the things with the Cubs that I didn't mention earlier is yesterday. The Cubs have had an issue with scoring runs in the middle innings and trying to take the lead and whatnot, and a lot of their hitters have struggled. But managers like Craig Counsell took offense to a take from Jesse Rogers from ESPN, who covers the Cubs, basically saying that Christopher Morel was swinging for the lake in the 7th inning when that at bat didn't go the way it probably should have. And Counsell was like, "Come on, dude! Like, that's a bad take." I'm like, "I'm sorry, Craig, but like,
it's not.
It looks like that's what he's doing. It looks like that's what he's doing sometimes." The guy has been awful at the plate a majority of the season. I know he leads the team in home runs, but at the same time, he's not had a great plate approach for most of the year. And I think that's fair to point out. The other thing I think it's fair to point out, and I think that Counsell really doesn't have much room to talk here, is Counsell doesn't defend his players on the field. And I don't really care what you do in the press conference, Seiya Suzuki has gotten bad call after bad call, day in and day out for the better part of 2 years now. David
Mhm.
Ross didn't defend him, and neither does Craig Counsell, and I just don't get it. Nico got called out last week on a couple of pitches that were clearly not in the zone. In his one at bat, um, stop getting angry at reporters in the press room if you're not defending the guys on the field. I don't quite understand this. Um, from the Cubs standpoint, it's just like, dude, can you just please like show some passion here and like get thrown out once or twice? Like
Yeah.
pretend you actually like show that you actually care. And then getting upset about a take in a press briefing just to me sounds stupid.
Yeah, complete
From
agreement
Council's
with that.
standpoint. The other read the rooms, I think that this whole thing with the All-Star game, we talked about it where they need to start wearing their team jerseys as opposed to these goofy things. Having a skills competition would really improve the overall watchability of the All-Star game and the All-Star package.
Mhm.
Maybe they need to consider moving the game into later in the week so that when Chris Sale pitches on Sunday, he doesn't automatically not pitch in the All-Star game.
Or Ranger or Wheeler
Or
yeah.
Wheeler or Ranger or anybody. But Sale was the one that was most poignant because it was
I
part of the
just
Manfred discussion. But
I cannot believe that Manfred thinks that he should have the right to. No, that's not your decision. I don't care that you're the commissioner of baseball. That decision should lie at only with the manager of the team, not the commissioner's office.
I agree with you, but I'm not surprised
Oh,
because
I'm not either.
there's
Manfred
a reason.
knows when
Like
things he
when
doesn't belong all the time.
like we've talked about the NFL a lot, right? And we talked about how there's a reason that the Kansas City Chiefs first round playoff game was on Peacock. There's a reason for that. It's a moneymaker. Let's not be stupid about it. And we all know that Livy Dunn and Paul Skeens makes the MLB money. Like it's stupid.
Mhm.
It eyeballs on the game makes the league a shit ton of money, and the amount of power that influencers and some of these college athletes have on marketing and stuff now, it's insane. So
Although let's
I'm
be
not
real.
surprised.
Well, let's be real though. Libby Dunn does not hold a candle to the influence Taylor Swift had on the NFL.
I'm not saying she holds a candle to the influence. I'm just saying from a
But
marketing
it's the same
standpoint,
idea.
I
Yeah.
get it. From a marketing standpoint, I get it. Nowhere did I say that they had the same marketing influence, but I think from a marketing standpoint, it just makes sense. And I
Just
get what
checking.
they're trying to do.
Just checking there.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I, I'm not quite ready to go on a rant about it yet, but I'm still pissed off at the schedule this year. I'm trying not to make homerish excuses for the fact that Atlanta got absolutely hosed with their schedule throughout the year and have had bad weather breaks throughout the year as well, which again, MLB can't predict the weather. Nobody can predict the weather. I don't blame MLB for the weather issues. I do blame MLB though for not having a schedule that allows flexibility to reschedule games. Because again, we had Atlanta playing 3 games in 48 hours before the break. Once again, they have the Cardinals coming out of the break, and the first game gets rained out. Okay, what is it with the damn Cardinals and rain delays and rainouts this year? Because I know you guys got screwed by that too.
Well, what can I say? St. Louis is boring.
It's boring, and anyway. I'm not ready to go in a full rant about the schedule yet. I did look at the schedule for next year, and I don't have as many complaints as I had this year because I did note that Atlanta does not have 2 17-game stretches like they do this year. Thank God. So that's something. So maybe they're slowly learning from their mistakes, although I'm going to be honest, that's giving MLB and Manfred way too much credit. So we'll just leave it at that and move into Down on the Farm before I blow a gasket on the commissioner and the commissioner's office. So this is what Jason said along. Since minor league baseball is on a break, he decided to reveal his top 5 minor league team names. Number 5, the Montgomery Biscuits, the AA affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays. Number 4, the Albuquerque Isotopes, AAA Rockies. Number 3, the Akron Rubber Ducks, the AA Guardians. Number 2, the Amarillo Sod Poodles, aka Armadillos, of the AA Diamondbacks. And as always, will forever be Jason's number 1 minor league baseball team name, the Rocket City Trash Pandas. They are the AA affiliate of the Angels. Not gonna lie, whenever I'm playing the show, I have to grin the whole time when we're playing whenever my team's playing the Trash Pandas, because that's just great. My down on the farm performance of the week, it's homerish, but when you listen to the numbers, you have to admit it. Atlanta's Drew Hackenberg. He's Atlanta's number 7 prospect. He's playing for AA, the Mississippi Emperors. Yesterday, Joe, he struck out 16 batters in 7 innings. That's the new minor league baseball single game high for the season and all across all levels. Yeah, it's homerish, but damn, what a performance. And I've got one minor league baseball retirement to note. The Philly single A team, the Clearwater Threshers, their bat dog Layla has retired. She played her last game last Friday. She was the bat dog for the team for 6 seasons. The pictures of watching that dog come out to grab the bats and take them back, absolutely adorable. It's one of the great things about minor league baseball. You can get away with stuff like that. So, Layla has retired, so that'll be it. I have not heard if the Clearwater Threshers are going to get another bat dog or if they will go back to the traditional bat boy or bat girl. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Joe, your food for thought question of the week. Your question was, if there's one player you could have with money and prospects being no object, who would it be? Jason said, based on all of the gushing he has done today about Aaron Judge, his player would be Aaron Judge. Who's your player before I reveal mine?
Well, I wasn't really thinking about me because my team's in the toilet. So why don't you go first?
All right. One player, if I could have money prospects being no object, Adley Rutschman. The value at catcher cannot be overstated. And the thoughts of Rutschman and Murphy throwing behind home plate just, holy crap. Nobody would ever steal against Atlanta again. So the things that impressed me about Rutschman, though, he was brought up fairly young for a catcher, and he very quickly learned how to handle his major league staff, and he does such a good job with that Orioles staff. Don't take anything away from the pitchers. The pitchers in Baltimore are great, but it helped. But when you have a great catcher behind the plate, it makes all the difference in the world. And let's be real, we've mentioned this the last 2 off seasons. The free agency pool for catchers sucks. There is so little depth that I feel like if you have any chance to bring on a great catcher, you do it.
Agreed. Rutschman would be my guy too, I think, from if money's no object. I think to pick somebody else just for the sake of discussion, I think right now, based on what he can bring to the table offensively and security defensively, I think Jason will like this one. Alec Bohm, that would be the other one I would take.
Yeah.
My team is in desperate need. Not that Morel hasn't proven that he can play the position a good amount, but Bohm is the best that Morel could be at this point, offensively and defensively. So.
All right. So we're going to go back to City Connects. Jason did not feel like giving the middle 23 the satisfaction for ranking because of how bad they are. I think Jason just forgot to do it for the last 2 weeks and decided to pick a top 5. But we'll let him slide on this excuse. He did note for the record his bottom 2 are Dodgers 1.0 and Dodgers 2.0 because if you suck that bad and you're given a second chance and you still suck, you deserve to be in the bottom. And I don't disagree with that. All right, Jason's top 5. Number 5, the Phillies. Homer pick, absolutely, but they've really grown on him. He digs them. If I took out my bias, the Pirates are probably in here with the colors and the design of the fabric. Number 4, the Mariners. A homer pick, absolutely, but they've really grown on me, and I dig them. Why did I double copy that? Oh, for the Mariners, he loved the color scheme. He thought they did a really nice job on the old logos. Sorry for double copying and pasting and looking like an idiot there, Jason. Number 3, Atlanta. Proof that I can be unbiased regarding the Braves. We'll see about that. The design being similar to the throwbacks is solid, although not as creative as other designs, but maybe that's a good thing. One thing I want to point out with that, I think I brought it up when you and I were doing our rankings. Use Atlanta was going to lose the Hank throwbacks because of Nike's stupid 4+1 rule. So that's why they did that particular throwback, to preserve those uniforms. And it's kind of why I think the Phillies ought to have done like a baby blue throwback as their City Connect, to preserve that. I think teams that are worried about losing these throwbacks because of these stupid uniform number limits, that's not a bad way to save them, is by tweaking them slightly and making them a City Connect. Especially because if I remember right, the City Connect program sadly is not going to die and it's going to come back again. So just food for thought for other teams out there. His number 2 was Astros. He loves the space, and their Space City unis are so fun, and he's not wrong about that. Those were great uniforms. And his number 1 was the Nationals. He's bummed that they're going to be retiring the Cherry Blossom jerseys so soon. Easily his favorite of all of those. So that's Jason's top 5. Not that far off from what we said either, Joe. So I'm really curious. We'll have to bug Ron to rank his 2, and we're not going to let Ron get away with top 5 only. So he's the low man with seniority on the podcast, so he doesn't get away with that yet. All right, let's move on to the Hall of Fame inductions for yesterday. We got to watch Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Joe Mauer, and Jim Leland get elected. Congratulations to those 4. Absolutely deserving. Joe, next year's first ballot members, there's more than this, but these are the guys that I feel like are the ones that have from the best shot to at least a shot. Ichiro Suzuki, CC Sabathia, Dustin Pedroia, Ian Kinsler, Felix Hernandez, Troy Tulowitzki, Curtis Granderson, Henley Ramirez, Russell Martin, Brian McCann, Carlos Gonzalez, and Fernando Rodney. So, Joe, of those, I think 2 we can agree on, Ichiro and CC. Ichiro is likely to be first ballot. CC's probably going to be first ballot, and if not, he'll be in within 2 years. Of the rest of these guys, Joe, who are you seeing as Hall of Famers out of these?
Not many, truthfully.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't a lot that really jumped off the page when you read them off. I mean, Ichiro should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, I would imagine.
Yeah.
CC maybe year 3 at the latest. But the rest of them don't really jump off the page. They don't really impress you all that much. I think part of the problem is that the what used to be statistical milestones are not necessarily milestones anymore, because we look at numbers a lot differently now. So it's just kind of hard to gauge some of these guys anymore.
I've got 3 guys besides Ichiro and CC that I think have a chance. Dustin Pedroia, between his regular season and postseason accolades, I think Pedroia's got a shot. Career slash line 299, 365, 439. That's an 805 OPS. He had 1,800 hits. He scored 922 runs and 725 RBIs. You know, not a power guy, but he could drive runs in, and stole 624 bases. 138 bases and walked 624 times. I mean, the guy knew how to get on base. Another guy, Brian McCann, I'm definitely a little biased there. Of course, McCann playing for the Braves for so many years. He put up solid numbers, though, overall, and he was a good catcher handling a pitching staff. 742 runs scored, 1,590 hits. His career 262, 337, 452 slash line. He had 282 home runs and 1,018 RBIs. And remember, catchers are given a little more leeway with lower averages and numbers because they can't play as many days because they need more off days. And then one other pitcher I want to consider is Fernando Rodney. He had a losing record because he was reliever 48 and 71, but he had a career 3.80 ERA, which I know not a great ERA, but a 1.3 WHIP to go with 327 saves. he's probably the longest shot of the three of those because I feel like the Hall of Fame still hasn't really decided what they consider to be a Hall of Fame closer. They don't know if it's just saves. They don't know if it's strikeouts per nine. They don't know if it's whip. They don't know if it's batting average against. But I think a guy with 300 plus saves should at the very least get some consideration. I mean, 943 strikeouts, over 933 innings. So he is more than a 1K per nine guy. Um, Not a huge strikeout guy, obviously, but it's, that number of saves, he at least deserves some conversation. And I think he will probably be able to at least get enough votes to stay on for more than a few years so that the writers have time to give him a better evaluation of whether they think he would make it or not.
Yeah, I think he would be on at least three ballots. I think Pedroia, of those three you mentioned, Pedroia has the best chance of it, strictly because of the team he played for and the role he played in ending the curse in Boston. Or maybe he was after it. I can't remember anymore. But, I think that Rodney and Pedroia have the best shot. Pedroia is the only one of those three that I even think has a really legitimate chance of getting in.
Pedroia, 2 World Series, a Rookie of the Year, an MVP,
Right.
4-time All-Star, 4-time Golden Glove, a Silver Slugger, and he won the Wilson Overall Defensive Player of the Year once. So I think Pedroia probably will be able to slip in. He won't be a first ballot by any means, but he should get in before year 4 or 5, I would think. McCann did win 1 World Series for the Yankees, the All-Star Game MVP once, a 7-time All-Star, and a 6-time Silver Slugger. I mean, he's not a good defensive catcher. I will freely admit that, but he did have a pretty darn solid bat for a catcher. So, like I said, if McCann makes it, he's like a year between year 7 and 10 guy. Like he's going to hang on long enough and get enough support towards the end to get the push. Rodney's a really interesting guy, though. I'm really genuinely curious to see what they're going to do with that. So we'll see. Mm-hmm. All right, the hot list decided to take the break off as well. It will be back next week. Looking at the week ahead, Atlanta is playing all week because 17 coming out of the break. 3 versus the Reds, Lopez versus Green tonight. Sale versus TBD and TBD versus Montas. 4 at the Mets, TBD versus Severino, Schwellenbach versus Senga, Lopez versus Peterson, Sale versus Quintana. Critical series for Atlanta to keep a gap between them and the Mets in the wild card. Cubbies 3 versus the Brewers, Assad versus Myers tonight, Tyone versus Reyes, Steele versus TBD. 3 at the Royals, Hendricks versus Singer, and Menanca versus Lugo, Assad versus Ragans. Phillies 3 at the Twins, Suarez versus Ober, Wheeler versus Woods Richardson, Nola versus TBD. 3 versus the Guardian, Sanchez versus Lively, Phillips versus Carrasco, and Suarez versus Curry. So some good matchups this week. I wouldn't be upset if the Cubbies took 2 out of 3 from Chicago North. It wouldn't bug me one bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they got lucky and won a game or 2 against Milwaukee. Kansas City, you're just not really sure what you're again, alluding to the reason I had this shirt on to begin with. I'm just not sure what team I have anymore. So,
and that's fair. Yeah, that's absolutely fair. All right. Anything else for you for the end of the week?
I don't think so, other than the fact that I hope Seattle kind of gets their act together, because the fact that they gave up a 10-game lead in 24 games, which is a record for quickest, give up of a 10-game lead in your division. I'd love to see them get their act together and keep Houston out of the playoffs.
I wouldn't be upset if Houston didn't make it. Never would be. All right, guys. Audio recordings are available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. We're live on YouTube and Facebook. Merchandise is at redbubble.com. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer, at Twitter at DDAB_podcast. All 4 of us are still on there. I'm at PyroLord314, Jason's at JRecord300, and Joe's at Jolt and Joe 35. Ron's at Dipner Ron. We're presented by Dark Arrow Podcast LLC and sponsored by Baron Barbershop over in Mannheim. Folks, may your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. We will see you next week.